One thing I want to quickly talk about, it's becoming quite important, and there seems to be a rush of everyone trying to make the loudest record possible. And it kind of, everyone seems to think that the way to do it is to try to push your levels, distortion, compression. All of those tools are really, really useful. But there's one thing that everyone really needs to take notice of is the way most of the computer programs are set up and the applications that we use to mix and create this stuff. We're looking at a metering system where you have 0 at the top, and we're constantly, and I'm very much personally guilty of this as well, of trying to get to that as quickly as possible, and it is completely the wrong way to try and get loud mixes. There is a movement within audio circles to run towards a system called K-metering. Now, K-metering basically means that instead of aiming for top digital full scale, which is how all of the meters work within the audio applications, that we work to a level down from 0, effectively full scale, which is how these meters work, and create an arbitrary 0 or a kind of a set 0 at a certain position. And the three that are used at the moment are K-20, K-14 and K-12. Now it sounds really technical and boring, but what this means is basically I've got a meter here that is made by audio pluggers. It's pretty cheap and it works, you'll notice that it'll look similar to basically almost like an old VU meter, and even the colours used are very similar to that. What this is doing, over here on the very far right is digital full scale, or what used to be digital full scale. So within Logic, when you're clipping at 0, you're actually peaking right here. This gives you a brilliant aiming point, and if you try and aim roughly for this kind of level here, as you would do with an analog VU meter, and if I just play this back, you'll see what I mean. Now, we're actually just slightly in the red there, but it can make an absolutely dramatic difference to your mixes if you kind of aim on an average level or a peak level for 0 here. One of the other reasons why this is so important is when digital audio first came about, they had to interface a system that was working in a completely different way. Analog audio works in volume units, or VU, and that is actually down originally to the voltages that knocked around in valves. As digital audio came about, that system had to be, as the conversion came, some standards had to be set, and headroom had to be given to, because obviously you cannot, as soon as you're going above 0 full scale in digital, you're actually clipping, which obviously everyone wanted to avoid. So there are a variety of systems, but mainly -18 or -20 are some of the reference points. So if you think about this going out of your equipment, say into a hardware processor and then back in, if you're running at -18, then the equipment that you're connecting to, whether it be a compressor or EQ, is working perfectly. That's the level it's accepting, that's the level that it's wanting to see. But when we're in the way that we often work within digital systems, we could be running, say, we might be just running 4 dB off the top of digital full scale. Now, if you think about that, that is 14 dB louder than the hardware is actually expecting to receive. So instantly as it's going in, you're getting close to the point of clipping. This is why when people are often coming out of Logic, out of an audio interface, a professional audio interface, into certain bits of hardware, they're noticing a level of distortion. It's very easy to do because we're so used to running digital hot, and it's kind of just become human nature to actually do that. But then if you think about some of the high-end plugins that are modeling certain bits of hardware, especially the Waves EQ, the Waves EQs and the compressors, they're a perfect example. Because they've modeled everything down to a component level, they're expecting signals averaging at 0 VU to go into them. And Waves, I think we tested it, work at about -20. So in other words, if you're sending a level into it that is clipping at -4 on your Logic or Ableton Live's metering, you're sending a signal that is far too hot for the plugin, and it's actually modeling the distortion. And this is the reason why it's so easy within digital mixing to just completely get everything clogged up, because plugins getting clogged up and getting the wrong levels just sound terrible. So what we've started doing here, and we've really noticed a massive difference, is working with a meter that will allow us to use one of these systems, whether it be K20, K14. We tend to find K14's the best. And if you work towards instead of working towards getting your master fader just completely cooked or any of the individual levels, use this as a metering source. And everything just becomes so much clearer. However, there is one problem that we noticed. Logic's meters were developed an awful long time ago, and they were quite obviously made by software engineers that obviously had a degree of understanding of audio engineering, but probably not at the level of some of the big organizations. So look, here's something we sort of whacked together with parts of the sample pack. I'll just play you quick through. There's quite a lot in it, so I'll show you the mixer. Now, even though the master fader looks cooked there, if I take the 3 plugins off before it and show you the metering, you'll see that actually, from an average level, I'm kind of just tickling 0. Now, one of the things I've had to change on this, and we've just found this out kind of by chance, is that let me show you what Logic looks like in its default state with this mix going through. So let me just quickly remind you of where we are. This is the mix as it stands. Now I've changed one preference. So if you pull up your preferences and go to mixer, and then on the level meters, change, this is how Logic defaults to exponential. So if you just buy Logic, put it onto a laptop, and then start mixing at this kind of level around -14 or even around -18 or 20, this is what your meters will look like. Now, quite frankly, they look shocking. So when you're working, if you see that going on, you're just going to start pushing your levels, which is kind of completely the wrong way to get clear and solid mixes. My suggestion is to flip that to linear, to sectional linear. Don't worry too much about the math or any of that kind of stuff that you see. It's just, from a mental point of view, if you see incredibly low levels, you're going to start pushing things up. But by flipping that, look at the difference in the actual metering. Looks healthy again. And then this is how we've been finishing things off. You do want to cook your master fader, then cook it at the end. Cook it right there. You've got tons of tools to be able to level everything back up. Do bear in mind though that you might want to pull some of it off if you've got a really good mastering engineer. If you're mastering yourself and you're playing it out, you are going to obviously need to get it nice and hot. But don't overcook it and then send it to a mastering engineer, because once you've removed all of that headroom, they've got nothing left to play with. But yeah, have a little play with it. It's really, really changed the way that we work, and it's developed us an enormous amount of clarity in what we're doing. And I, for one, I'm perfectly happy to admit that I get panicky during mixes, as everyone does. It's a stressful business. Some people are just natural at it. Some people, like ourselves, we do, you know, it's not an easy task, but we found this has made a massive difference to our working methods.